Santita sang at my second inauguration. The boys who got to go to Congress, and Yusuf, I thought when the first time I met Yusuf, I thought I could do whatever I wanted if he worked for me. He just take care of things. It's been an honor to know all of you. But I want to say something, highly personal tonight. I came to truly love Jesse, and we had more in common than he thought. We were both two who were living in the South. And so I got to watch this guy. And frankly, the first time we met was at the 20th anniversary of the celebration of the integration of Little Rock Central High School. And some young people may not even know why that's important. But in the 1920s, that school was voted the most beautiful high school in America. During the whole time I was governor of Arkansas, that one school accounted for 25% of our merit scholars. You could go there and study Latin and Greek, which was a pretty big deal out in the country, in addition to all the science and math. So they were celebrating the 20th anniversary, and Jesse showed up to help them. But he was always asking himself, observation of a past victory to get done today. So only members of Congress are on that list. I know, but I said, I think we need to put him on anyway. And they said, so I had another guy that was there and said, what the list is? He said, it's a list of people that'll dog you to death until you do what they want you to do. So we just call it the Just Say Yes list. Put it on the Just Say Yes. It saves you so much time, and you can go on and do something else with your day. And I remember how impressed I was in 1988, before I became president, when Jesse and negotiated with Governor Dukakis and the other people at the Democratic Convention to end the exclusive primaries, which you talked about it, and the caucuses, and to open up the democratic process and add people, including Willie Barrow and Representative Maxine Waters, who became one of our senior leaders. I'm saying this to make another point. Everybody knows how eloquent he was, and everybody knows that he could talk an owl out of a tree. But he actually was interested in policy, in specifics. So that's the second thing I'd like to say. So what if you weren't big, tall, broad-shouldered, and eloquent like Jesse Jackson. If you want to make change, there's still plenty you could do if you've got an agenda. You've got to have it. He always had an agenda. So that's the most important thing I could say to you. Now, one other thing I am going to say. Wordsworth, you don't think about Wordsworth when you think about Jesse. But Wordsworth said the last best hope of a good man's life are the little unremembered acts of kindness and love. So I used to think all the time about how hard Jesse's childhood must have been, with his mother and then having to go past his father's house and all that, and all the mixed up. And I knew a little about not nearly as severe a situation because of my situation. And I admired his mother. I was afraid of Jackie. I'd do whatever she said for the group. But I love you so much. But I really, and he called me one day and he said, this is purely personal, but my mother liked you, and I'd really appreciate it if you would speak at her service. And he said, Andy Young's coming, and there aren't that many of us left anymore who are over 75 and have been through all this. And I said, I would be honored. I know this sounds funny, but it really meant something to me that he wanted me to talk at his mother's memorial service. And then, I don't think I've ever told anybody this. When the Congress was trying to run me out, and I was in that big impeachment fight, Jesse called me one night in the White House. I thought he was calling me. He said, I don't want to talk to you. I want you to go get Chelsea. Now keep in mind, he's got all this other stuff going on. We got all this stuff. He called me to talk to my daughter to make sure she had her head in the game. And he prayed with her on the phone. And, a lot of people, it would never even have occurred to them to do that. And ever since Hillary and I went to visit Jesse in the hospital and Jackie and a lot of the family were there, I've been thinking about him, calling my daughter. He didn't know if I was going to be president in 6 months. He didn't know what was going to happen. But he liked Chelsea. I thought showed he had good taste. But my point is, those are the things you remember. So I think we should honor him by saying, okay, maybe I'll never come up with a line like, open your brains and not your veins. Maybe I'll never give a speech that will move hundreds of thousands, but I can do something. I can still be somebody. And what should I do? And how can I, with whatever speaking ability I have or don't have, do what he did when he calls Bill Clinton's daughter in a crisis? When he asked a friend, I know you may be busy and my mother's not famous, but would you please come say a few words? And Andy Young and I went, but we both went. and we were there. So that's what I want all of you to think about when you leave here. This guy lived a big life. He lived with his head and with his heart. He was faithful to the scripture which said, we have all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. But unlike a lot of people in politics, he didn't go around looking down his nose at other people. He hated the sin and not the sinner. He was always trying to lift people up. So I'm here more as a friend than a former president. He was my friend when I needed it. And I ask you to ask yourselves how you can do more by being a better friend and a more effective one. God bless you and thank you.
Come on, let's thank President Clinton again for those remarks. Reverend Jackson believed that women deserved equal pay. Reverend Jackson believed women deserved equal opportunity. Reverend Jackson believed that women should hold the highest roles and positions in the land. The first woman, the first African-American woman, the first Asian American woman, Vice President Kamala Harris.
Good afternoon, everyone. Mrs. Jackie, and to the entire Jackson family, on behalf of Doug and my family, we pray with you as we did a couple weeks ago in your home, and we thank you. I thank you. So let me just say, I predicted a lot about what's happening right now. I'm not into saying I told you so, but we did see it coming. But what I did not predict is that we would not have Jesse Jackson with us right now to help us get through this. And this afternoon has been such a beautiful remembrance of his spirit, his life, and his faith. And in a way that Reverend Al talked about it and so many others have, I do think of this afternoon as what it is doing for me to renew my faith in what is possible, fueled by the hope that Jesse Jackson so often reminded us of. I'm reminded of a passage in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 7, verse 7. Ask, and it will be given to you. Seek, and you will find. Knock, and the door will be opened to you. And so from a young age, we know that Reverend Jackson saw that the doors had been closed to the millions of people across our nation and throughout the world who were otherwise so deserving. And they were doors, of course, to opportunity, to equity, to justice, to freedom. And so he dedicated his life, as we all know, to breaking down those barriers. So when we are speaking of these doors, I will share with you that as a child, I was raised that when you see a closed door, you must knock and wait to be invited in. What life has taught me is that if that invitation is not offered, And if that door remains shut, even after repeated attempts to knock on said door, sometimes you have no choice but just to kick that open. Reverend Jackson was impatient. He did not waste time waiting. Even when the doors in front of him were barred and bolted, even if those on the other side hesitated or even ignored him, he always devised a way through. Jesse Jackson was a strategist. He was one of the most effective community and political organizers of our time. And he was the founder, I think most would agree, the founder of the modern progressive coalition. Think about the work that he did. In addition to the strength of his spirit and his determination, the leadership of Jesse Jackson was defined by his vision, dare I say his ambition, to tap into what otherwise had been untapped in terms of the potential of a coalition of seemingly different people who could be brought together around shared values and ideals and experience. That's what Jesse Jackson did. He modeled that for so many of us. Over the past half century, that coalition strategy, his methodology, has been the heartbeat for so many movements about progress in our country. Those movements born out of struggle, but resulting in progress. Think about, and it was mentioned, the women leaders that he elevated, like the self-described colored girls who have been a driving force, have been about freedom and justice. Throughout his life, Reverend Jackson reminded us that the many fights for freedom are interconnected. He saw not only the interconnection, but the interdependence of the various struggles of Black Americans, Native and LGBTQ Americans, and Americans with disabilities. That was Jesse's, continued to grow it. He gave us the language, the rainbow, to understand, as has been said, the beauty that comes after the storm when we see what is possible and what can be unburdened by what has been. As he once said, when a barrier falls for one of the locked out, it opens the doors for all. And that is what he told me and what he taught me and how he inspired me. I was a student at Howard University, you know, when Jesse Jackson was one of the leaders of the anti-apartheid movement, and me and my classmates would go out on the mall every weekend and protest, looking at Jesse Jackson as a model of what that movement should and could have been. I was a law student then in 1988 when Jesse Jackson decided to run again. I was the first Black woman elected district attorney of San Francisco. I was the first Black woman elected district attorney in the state of California in 2004, when I created one of the first in the nation initiatives as a prosecutor that was about getting jobs and counseling to those who had been in the criminal justice system. And at the time, the powers that be told me that. They said, "Why are you letting people out of jail?" Jesse Jackson spent a lot of time in the Bay Area. Many of you know. I saw Butch Wing here. And Butch, together with Jesse Jackson, would visit with me during the earliest days of my elected career to give me the support and the initiative to think about how, in a position such as being DA, I could continue the idea about what it means to build coalition around a group of people whose dignity must be seen and the resources that must be put into them. Jesse Jackson, from my first elected position to when I ran with Joe Biden for Vice President of the United States, and when I became the Democratic nominee for President of the United States, always told me and convinced me that everything that we were doing is possible. And so I just want to share what I brought today. I brought with me two momentums from Jesse Jackson's campaign that I have saved since I was a student. So one is this button that reads Jesse Jackson 88. The other, some of you who were around at the time may remember, is this button. I'll read it to you, and pastors, please forgive me. It reads as follows, all caps. Damn straight, exclamation point. It's time for a Black presidential candidate. That was a Jesse Jackson pin from those days. And just a beautiful example of his well done, good and faithful servant. Well done. Thank you.
What a joy and a privilege to have Vice President Kamala Harris. At this time, ladies and gentlemen, I want to bring a current president. The president of Colombia is here. Where is the president of Colombia? Look, come on, sir. The president of Colombia is here. President Petro, we honor you, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being here.
Yo no aprendí inglés en mi colegio, así que habrá traducción.
I did not learn English at school, so there will be interpretation.
A toda la familia Jackson, mi sentido pésame, mi solidaridad en momentos que se vuelven difíciles. Vivimos tiempos difíciles.
To the entire Jackson family, my condolences. These are difficult times, and you have my solidarity.
No puedo, como la mayoría de los que aquí han hablado, expresarme en torno a anécdotas, a vida conjunta con Jesse Jackson, al que conocí una vez y al que condecoré con uno de las grandes condecoraciones de la República de Colombia.
Like others who've spoken today, I cannot, or unlike others, I cannot share anecdotes from personal experiences, even though I did once meet Jesse Jackson, and I also gave him an award that is the highest honor that one can receive in Colombia.
Lo hice porque representaba para mí un símbolo de los pueblos africanos.
I did so because I saw him as a living symbol of the struggle to uphold the legacy of all of the Africans who had been brought across the seas by force.
Yo vengo del país de la belleza. Nos enorgullece vivir en medio de la belleza.
I come from the country of beauty. We are very proud to live amid
Una enorme diversidad natural como no se en buena parte del mundo.
We have great natural diversity, one of the most biodiverse countries in the world.
Una explosión de la vida
We are an explosion of life.
que me ha hecho pensar que la vida es también una energía
And this has led me to think that life is also a form of energy.
y que Einstein se equivocó en que aún le faltó en su ecuación meter la energía vital.
And
la
then
energía de la vida.
Einstein in his equation left out one thing, which is vital energy, the energy of life,
Que también, de acuerdo a la física, se transforma y se transforma.
which also, according to physics, becomes transformed over and over again.
Y por tanto, como seres vivos con energía vital, simplemente muere una parte y nuestra energía se transforma.
As living beings with life energy, there's one part that dies, but then our energy is transformed.
Y esa vitalidad natural en mi país, diversidad de centenares de miles de especies vegetales, animales, también está en la sangre, en la genética de los seres humanos que habitan las Américas.
And this natural life energy that we find in our country in the hundreds of thousands of species, plant and animal species, is also something that we find in the beings of our world and of the Americas.
Y como no podía curso de anécdotas, de situaciones comunes físicamente personales, con Jesse Jackson decidí mirar un poco la historia de Chicago y la nuestra misma.
And so, since I can't really share personal experiences that I have shared with Jesse Jackson, instead I would like to speak a little bit about the history of Chicago and the history of Colombia and certain aspects that we share.
Y encontré en el Google el encuentro de una palabra de un señor con nombre en francés, Jean-Paul Juan Disable.
And I came across the name of someone with a French name, Jean-Paul Dusable,
Africano, americano, él
an African and American
que se enamora de una indígena ancestral, decimos nosotros, americana, en este mismo lugar.
and who fell in love with an ancestral American, that is to say, a Native American woman in this very place.
Y se le atribuye el hecho de ser el fundador de esta ciudad desde su casa en donde vivía amor.
And I understand that he is considered to be the founder of this city from his home where he experienced love.
No se sabe bien con certeza si era haitiano.
It's not known for sure whether he was Haitian,
Voy a suponer que él era de Haití por su nombre en francés.
but I will assume that he was from Haiti because of his French name.
Pero entonces estaba libre en este lugar con su piel como afrodescendiente en un lugar que empezaba a pulular en las mentes de las comunidades traídas como esclavos a la fuerza en Haití. La isla de Santo Domingo se le llamaba con la palabra libertad.
And so he lived here with his, freely, as an Afro-descendant, as somebody at the same time that Haiti had become a free country at that time. It lived here with freedom.
Coincidió en que ayer viví un debate con la prensa colombiana. La mayor parte no me quiere, es propiedad de gente muy rica en Colombia.
And yesterday, it just so happens that yesterday there was a debate in the Colombian press. Now, most of the Colombian press don't like me. They're owned by, most of the press outlets are owned by very wealthy people.
Porque aparecí 5 segundos en una película con un actor estadounidense de Nueva York, Cuba, se llama su nombre.
Because I appeared in a cameo role in a film being filmed in Colombia with an actor from New York, whose name is Cuba,
Ganador del Oscar.
an Oscar Award winner.
Y la película se llama José Prudencio Padilla.
And the name of the movie is José Prudencio Padilla.
Espero que la vean.
I hope you see it.
Trata de un hombre afroamericano
And it is about an African-American man
nacido en el extremo norte de la Guajira,
who was born in the far north of Colombia in the Guajira Peninsula.
norte de Colombia actual,
Yeah.
que es fundador de la Fuerza Naval de Colombia.
And he was the founder of the Colombian Navy.
Le llamamos el Gran Almirante.
And we call him the Great Admiral.
Afro, hijo de esclavo negro
And he was a black man whose parents were slaves,
y
African
de
slaves.
madre indígena americana Wayuu
And
en
the
el
mother-
territorio.
Woman of the Wayuu people in that part of Colombia.
Luchó o bandera francesa contra los ingleses.
And he fought as a young man, he fought under the
En
French
Trafalgar.
flag against the British in
Cayó bajo el
Trafalgar.
almirante Nelson preso
And Admiral Nelson, he fell prisoner under Admiral Nelson.
y vino a su aldea Riohacha a hacer un barco de madera y allí lo encontró el libertador Simón Bolívar.
And then he was at his town of Riohacha making a boat, and the liberator Simón of Colombia and South America, Simón Bolívar, encountered him there.
Y venía Bolívar de Haití con la primera bandera, que aún es la bandera de mi país, el tricolor.
And Bolívar came from Haiti with the first flag, which is still the flag of Colombia, a three-color flag.
Cuya mitad es azul y roja.
Half of the flag is blue and red,
El amarillo de arriba es el sol del Caribe
and the yellow part at the top represents the sun of the Caribbean.
y la bandera que sigue, azul y roja, era la bandera más conocida en el mundo como el símbolo de la libertad.
And the blue and red that followed represented the flag that was best known in the world as a symbol of liberty,
Levantada por negras y negros que se llamaban a sí mismos libres y habían cortado ellos mismos la cadena y habían hecho la revolución más grande del mundo en ese momento.
and this was done by black men and women who had freed themselves, cutting the chains, and they created the biggest and most important revolution in the world at that time.
Y esa coincidencia paradójica en la historia de lugares tan apartados, Chicago, Haití,
And this paradoxical coincidence of places that are so far apart,
lo que se llamó la
Chicago,
Gran Colombia,
Haiti, Colombia, or La Gran Colombia as it
me
was
hace
known at the
pensar en un
time,
concepto.
leads me to think of one concept.
Esta lucha por la libertad tiene una base que se llama diversidad humana.
This struggle for liberty has a base which is called human diversity.
No se puede ser libre sin la diversidad humana.
There cannot be freedom without human diversity.
Desde el nacimiento mismo de la humanidad, la diversidad ha sido su fundamento.
From the very birth of humankind, diversity has been its
El
very
fundamento
foundation.
de nuestras repúblicas es la diversidad y la diversidad es la gran riqueza de la naturaleza y de la humanidad.
The foundation of our republics is diversity, and diversity is the great basis of our republics and of our freedom.
Es decir, no es posible pensar en una humanidad con pensamiento único, con una única música, con una
A single way of thinking, a single kind of music, a single kind of culture. That simply does not exist.
Quien intente levantar ese objetivo se convierte automáticamente en fascista.
And one who pursues that sort of an objective automatically becomes a fascist.
Eliminar la diversidad es eliminar humanidades, creyéndose raza superior y las razas no existen.
Eliminating diversity means eliminating humanity, thinking of things in terms of a superior and an inferior race, things that do not exist.
Y si vengo a este momento contemporáneo de la humanidad,
And if I come to this contemporary moment of humankind,
en donde Jesse no nos ha dejado,
where Jesse has not left us,
simplemente ha transformado su energía.
his energy has simply been
Está en
transformed.
un lugar,
He's somewhere
en un espacio y en un tiempo
in a space and a time
desde el que quizás nos observa y nos ayuda.
from which perhaps he's observing us and will be helping
Porque
us.
en este momento
Because
estamos ante un desafío.
Because at this time we do face a challenge.
A veces me siento cuando amanezco en algún día pensando en que estamos viviendo lo que se vivía en Europa en el año 1933.
Sometimes when I get up in the morning, I feel that we're going through what it was like in Europe in 1933.
Me sorprenden las noticias,
I'm surprised by the news,
incluso sobre mí mismo.
even news about myself.
Era 3 de enero, acabábamos de empezar y festejar este nuevo año
And it was January 3rd. We were just celebrating the new year.
y caían misiles en Caracas.
And missiles were being dropped on Caracas
Y
in
esa era la
Venezuela.
ciudad donde nació Simón Bolívar, el
And-
que encontró a Padilla y trajo la bandera de Haití para luchar por la libertad.
The very city where Simón Bolívar was born and from which he brought the flag from Haiti and fought for our freedom.
Y un misil en el Caribe, que es el mar de la libertad, no puede ser.
And a missile falling in the Caribbean, which is the Sea of Liberty, that cannot be.
Es una alerta de que estamos viviendo el inicio de tiempos de la barbarie.
It's a sign, it's a warning that we're beginning to.
Y
A
hasta
very
llegamos a
difficult moment.
pensar que un misil iba a caer sobre nosotros,
And we started even thinking that a missile might
sobre mí mismo.
come down on
Y me
ourselves,
tocó ir
on myself.
corriendo a la casa presidencial para guardar la espada del libertador que mantenía en el combate siempre, para guardarla con mi propio cuerpo.
And I had to go to the presidential palace to guard the sword of Bolivar, which we have always kept in order to protect it myself.
Pero los misiles se fueron desplazando de geografía y entonces estamos ante una circunstancia.
But the missiles have shifted in terms of where they're being dropped from one part of the world to another, and we find ourselves in the face of a circumstance.
Una circunstancia que recuerda 1933.
A circumstance that does remind us of 1933.
Ese año Hitler, sin tener la mayoría electoral, subió al poder en Berlín, Alemania.
That year, Hitler came to power in Berlin, in Germany, without having an electoral majority.
Ese día Ernest Hemingway, como decía en su libro, doblaron las campanas.
And that day, as it says in Hemingway's books, the bells tolled.
Y no doblaban por ti solamente, doblaban por la humanidad.
And they did not toll just for you, they tolled for human.
Todas las pieles, de todos los colores, jóvenes multicolores unidos,
And young people of all colors, multicolored young people,
jóvenes multicolores de la Unión Soviética,
and from the Soviet Union,
jóvenes multicolores de la China,
and from China,
jóvenes multicolores de la Europa, de todas las culturas,
and from Europe, from all different cultures,
se atrevieron a levantarse,
dared rise up
a morir en lugares fríos y extraños, lejos de su
to
familia,
die in cold and unfamiliar places, far
y
from
a
their families,
destruir quizás el mayor peligro contra la libertad y la humanidad del que hayamos tenido existencia, el peligro de Hitler.
in order to destroy the worst danger that humankind had ever known.
Y se puede hablar de libertad después.
And one could speak of liberty afterwards.
Y hoy estamos ante ese mismo peligro, pero ya no en un rincón geográfico
And today
llamado
we're-
Europa,
Today we're
llamado
facing
Asia,
the same danger, but not in a geographic space called
sino que
Europe or
estamos
Asia.
ante un peligro que es todo el planeta,
But-
toda la humanidad.
Rather, it's the entire earth, all of humankind.
Y por eso quise venir aquí frente a
And-
Jesse
That's why I wanted to come here before Jesse
para que nos ayude,
so that he could help us.
porque hoy que hay que hacer lo mismo, exactamente lo mismo que esos muchachos y muchachas de todos los colores de Estados
Because
Unidos,
Today we
de
have
la
to
Europa,
do
del
the
Asia,
exact same thing as
de la
all of
Rusia
those
de aquel
young people
entonces.
from the United States, from Europe, from Asia, from Russia
pero
at the
ahora
time.
es toda la humanidad
But now it's
entera.
all of humankind.
Nos toca unirnos,
We must join together.
nos toca construir un arcoíris para todo el planeta
We need to build a rainbow for the entire planet.
contra los misiles.
No rifle will be of any help in these.
Lo que hay es palabra que tiene actitud.
It's the word that has power and multitudes behind it in the face
Y
of
la
missiles.
multitud se llama humanidad.
And the multitude is humankind.
Y ya acabo mis 3
And with that,
minutos.
I conclude my remarks.
Hoy es el momento, decía,
This is the time
de que el presidente de Estados Unidos,
For the-
mirando el retrato de Lincoln, él y yo personalmente,
the President of the United States and I together were looking at the portrait of Lincoln
ante un bonito jardín de rosas que él diseñó.
in the face of the rose garden that he's
Yo soy
redesigned.
como Jackson en esto de la palabra.
And I know I've run out of time.
Pueda separarse completamente
Can be completely separated
de quien lo lleva a él y a la humanidad a un abismo.
from that which is taking him and humankind to an abyss.
Separarse de Netanyahu es necesario.
He must move away from Netanyahu.
Separarse de quien niños y niñas en el planeta Tierra.
And from those who launch missiles against the planet Earth.
Separarse de los misiles y hablar de un
Move away from missiles and speak of a pact
pacto
for life.
por la paz y unirnos alrededor de Jesse para hacer realidad un arco iris de la humanidad. Gracias, muy amable.
know you don't believe it. I know you don't believe it, but we shall overcome. One of these days might take a little longer, but down in my heart, I do believe we shall overcome. Leandria Johnson is here, and she's coming with the choir. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. Someday, down in my heart, I do believe that we shall, we shall overcome. Someday, God will see us through. God will see us through. God will see us through. Someday, down in my heart, I do believe. You ought to tell somebody that we shall. Oh, we shall. God knows that we shall overcome someday. If y'all don't mind, you can put your hands together here. Oh, come on, choir. We shall. We shall. Oh, we shall overcome someday. I do believe. Yeah, we shall. Oh, yeah. We shall. We shall. someday. Listen, it's time for the next speaker, and I don't want to lose this funeral. I've never been in a funeral before where I lost it in the middle of the funeral. So listen, we are not at the end. We are still in the midst of the celebration. So I'm going to ask everybody in the front that's hugging the Jackson family to go back to wherever you were, your seat. I want us to be calm for our next speaker. I want everybody that's in the aisle, and I love you. I know how long you've been here. I came in with you. And I know that it looked like we were coming to a culmination and everybody rushed the family. But we need to hear our next speaker, and we need to be calm. So everybody that's hugging the family, that's my second time, and it's my second time in my calm voice. The next time will be in the voice of my mama, as I tell everybody that's standing up to sit down. Down in our hearts, we do believe that we shall overcome. Those of you in the front, the family is going to be here. Thank you, Bishop Sheard. The family's going to be here. That's right. You're doing really well. Our next speaker is a Jackson family member. Put your hands together for the next congressman of the 2nd Congressional District, the former congressman of the 2nd Congressional District, Jesse L. Jackson Jr. Come on, everybody, put your hands together for Jesse Jackson Jr.
Thank you, Pastor Meeks. If I can have everyone's attention for just a moment, I promise that I'm going to bring this program to a tighter close and get us out of here at a reasonable hour. Abraham Lincoln delivered the Gettysburg Address, Pastor Browning, in 3.5 minutes. Martin Luther King Jr. delivered the I Have a Dream speech in 13.5 minutes. If it can't be said between the Gettysburg Address and I Have a Dream, it ought not be said at all. For what remains of my time, and I promise Yusef that now, when Martin Luther King Jr. died in 1968, he was an immensely unpopular figure, Brother Reynolds, Brother Sharpton, members of the Congressional Black Caucus who were present. Dr. King, on April 4th, 1968, was immensely unpopular. Who he is today is not who he was on April 4th, 1968. And I'm sensing, Sister Parker, on this occasion that we are moving in the direction of a Jesse Jackson that I wouldn't, Mama, even recognize. Jesse Jackson, at the hour of his death, was not Roland Martin, a popular figure. He would have stood against the war in the Gaza. He would have been fighting for the Affordable Care Act. He would be fighting to save the Voting Rights Act of 1965 and challenging the Supreme Court to render a decision, a Calais decision that would strengthen the Congressional Black Caucus and not undermine it. If you are a member of the Congressional Black Caucus and you are still here, allow us the opportunity to recognize you. Please stand. Members of the CBC came from around the country, and our congressional districts are under threat at this hour. I want to try and summarize in the 5 minutes that I have left some of what I heard from everyone, starting with President Clinton. He said, with head and heart. With Head and Heart is the title of the autobiography written by the late Dr. Howard Thurman, who dedicates his life story to simple and haunting simplicity, Mr. Mayor. He dedicates the book, and I quote this, Jonathan, to the stranger in the railroad station in Daytona Beach who restored my broken dream 65 years ago. To the stranger. Who was Jesse Jackson? To the political class that took up most of the time. Dad was a stranger, awaiting a return phone call, reminding the political class of the urgency of the hour. That's who my daddy was.